So, what's good, everybody? It's your boy, the Black Anglo-Saxon, your favorite neighborhood political scientist. Today, I have with me a guest, and we are going to be talking about the Cracker Barrel rebranding, along with the removal of statues, and speaking to basically kind of how those things intertwine and are interwoven, and just basically, is this also censorship in the idea that we have liberalism on one side, but then we also have, quote unquote, what people would call the GOP or the conservative language, or the conservative playbook as it relates to removing CRT in schools, and just a bunch of other things that have been going on in the current modern time with Donald Trump's attacks on the Smithsonians, etc. But just the overall, what I feel like is censorship of history. Now, my personal opinion, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is that they are one and the same. I think that the approach and how people relate to it based on what political party or what political ideology you may side with, whether that be your liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, leftist, MAGA, etc. I think you may enter into the conversation slightly different depending on where you stand. But today I want to have a conversation and explore the idea that they are one and the same. So without further ado, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and introduce my guest, or rather I'll let him introduce himself, and then we'll just go ahead and jump into the conversation. So you on, bro?
What's up, man? How y'all doing today? Thank you for having me, D. I appreciate it. My name is Darius, man. Darius Opus, aka Darius the Great. You know, I do podcasts and music, interviews, think pieces, album reviews, everything. So that's like my lane. We on Facebook became friends, and you know, we always have discourse or conversations about, you know, things in the political realm, just life things and that nature. So I agree. I mean, I appreciate you.
Nah, most certainly. So I'm gonna just go ahead and jump into the actual conversation real quick. So this is the video. As some of you all may know, Cracker Barrel rebranded, which is, you know, a little funny to me, because I think that it's interesting that they took the cracker and the barrel off of the actual logo itself. So that was pretty interesting. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the video and let y'all see this first
Honestly,
before
the
we discuss
feedback's
it.
been overwhelmingly positive that people like what we're doing. I'll give you another soundbite. I actually happened to be in Orlando last week with all of our managers. We bring them together and every other year. And the number one question that I got asked, Michael, was, how can I get a remodel? When can I get a remodel? How do I get on the list?
Oh, really?
So because the feedback and the buzz is so good, not only from our customers, but from our team members. They want to work in a wonderful restaurant. So we're doing everything for our guests and our team members.
Well, Julie Messino, it's wonderful to have you here.
Pleasure to
and
be
thank
here.
You
Thank
for
you again.
answering those questions for all the Cracker Barrel fans out there. And a lot of great changes.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Robin?
Going to stay. Okay.
So are the rocking chairs,
And the
fireplace,
biscuit.
vintage decor. It's all there.
All right. Okay, because that would be a deal breaker. That would be a deal.
All right. So y'all heard her talk about basically the rebranding, but I thought what was interesting in that conversation was also the piece where she asked towards the end whether they were going to keep everything else intact. And I think that's super, super important as it relates to kind of how everything goes when it comes to a lot of these initiatives that we do. And the reason why I say that, the reason why I believe that it's the same, bro, is because what good is it, and you can tell me how you feel about it, what good is it to change the whole Cracker Barrel logo, right? Remove the cracker, remove the barrel, but keep the guts, keep the way that it functions, keep the mechanics of it. And so basically it's a visual aesthetic change for a lot of these companies, but the companies still operate the same. And for me, I never had an issue with Cracker Barrel. I'll say that to be the first. I like Cracker Barrel. I like their food. It's good. It's delicious. But I don't necessarily think that removing and creating this whole idea around it looks different, but it operates the same as some type of progress. Like, do you see that as progress, or do you see that as beneficial to how you feel about engaging with a particular company or brand?
Look at it two ways, man. One is most corporations and businesses are amoral. So they really don't have no spine. They're just going to go with whatever the crowd dictates. That's why sometimes, like somebody like Chick-fil-A, I kind of respect because they stand on it, on what they believe. They're not bending. They're not overtly leaning one way. Like we know they're a conservative brand, but they're not pushing it in your face. But at the same time, they're not going to bend on what they believe to appease a certain demographic. This situation with Cracker Barrel is kind of confusing because, I heard from an aesthetic standpoint, I heard like people say it reminds you of slavery or like some down south plantation type vibe when you get there with the rocking chairs and the aesthetic inside. So I'm trying to understand, like, was it a component to it where it was like some racial discrimination at these places? Because I'm like, if it's just the aesthetic that people are saying that needs to change because it gives them a vibe, that's kind of like a personal thing that they're projecting onto a company. So I'm like, because I'm like, when you go in there, okay, it looks like a Southern house or, your old grandma's house.
Exactly.
But if you put the connotation that it reminds you of slavery, that's something that you're creating in your mind and that you're pegging them as. And for a company to bend and fold for that, again, I feel like we were talking about, it's kind of dishonest. It's just disingenuous because it's like, all you got to say, yo, this is not representation of slavery or plantation. This is just representation of the South. You know what I mean? This is how your grandmother house looked. This is how your great aunt looked. So I'm trying to understand in context, why was this change? Was this change deemed necessary? Was it because of actual incidents that happened that racism was involved? Like, that's what I'm kind of lost at.
So I wouldn't necessarily say I'm lost, but I will say that I think that one, it comes from a place of people trying to get wins around the edges. So a lot of the times in our current modern day politics, a lot of people, instead of attacking the actual core of the issues that have taken place, they will do little aesthetic things. Like instead of actually, approaching how the business model works, they're going to approach just the particular picture that we see right here. And for me, my thing is, even if it is from a place of the South during Jim Crow and slavery, that is cool. That's fine. Let it be that. I am not offended by it because it is a part of our history. And I think that we have to be in a space as to where, because again, for me, it's like, all right, cool. If you're going to have that stance on it, why not just get rid of it in totality? Right? Why just say, all right, cool, I'm gonna change the picture, but to the point at the end, are you gonna keep the stools? Are you gonna keep the bar tables? Are you gonna keep everything else intact? Because if we look at a list of companies and we look at a list of universities, a lot of people, like you said, have been amoral. I just made a video about the amorality of slavery. And so it's like business has always done that. And that has been my critique just overall with sometimes the approach and how people look at it is because if we really want to have a conversation about the mechanics of how things, lead to what people would call disparities or racism, etc. Let's do that in a way where it's not superficial. Let's do that in a way where we're not painting Black Lives Matter in the street. Let's do that in a way where it actually leads to people having better quality of life while still being able to go eat Cracker Barrel.
I wanna respond to that. So this is my what I see and observe, my observation. And before I say this, I want to let you know I'm neither liberal, I'm not conservative, I'm neutral.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to think I'm attacking one and praising the other. From my observation, I feel like when it comes to these type of things, liberals are more moved by symbolism and conservatives are more moved by policy. I think, and I'm not saying conservatives aren't moved by symbolism as well, but I feel like when it comes to liberals, they're more emotionally tied to symbolism versus actual change, or the aesthetics of things versus conservatives creating laws, creating things that they, that their demographic or their following is more tangible in some ways. Do you agree with that?
So I agree with it to an extent. And I say that because I think both of them, I agree with you in the terms that both of them do participate in symbolic gestures. And I think the difference, to your point, is that the GOP, conservatives, however you want to label them, understand that that is not the end of the battle. I think liberals, Democrats, leftists, etc., and I critique both of them. You know me. I call out both of them for the tomfoolery that they participate in. But I think that where my critique of leftists is that we fall into letting symbolism be the end of where we stop. Because it's not so much that I have an issue with the rebranding in itself, but it's like, what does the rebranding mean if I don't have the policy positions as well as the organizing that goes hand in hand with it? Because it's my same critique that I have in the community. It's like, okay, if we have an issue with these companies, these people, the politicians, etc., what are we doing to organize? What are we doing outside of the symbolic gesture of just protesting? What are we doing? Because this is just another form of symbolic protest. And to your point, I have always said and will always say that even though I am not conservative, they will continue to win because they understand practicality. They understand what it means to be truly inclusive. I was having a conversation the other day about somebody, they were upset that, Donald Trump freed the January 6 people. And people are probably saying, well, how does this relate in? Because that inclusivity, even though they might not necessarily be on the same economic ladder, they operate on the same ideological plane. So I align myself with you practically in the real world so that we can build and mobilize in ways that the left and the Democrats do not do. Because they'll do and have a lot of this lip service and do these rebrandings, etc., but move in a conservative way. And so my critique is always like, all right, cool. A lot of y'all want to talk about, again, we want to talk about Donald Trump, and that's going to move us into our second segment, is that we want to talk about Donald Trump. We want to talk about all of these different things. But at the same time, we participate in the same behavior. Because for me, the removal of statues, right, is the same thing that is being done with these companies. So you had a Target, let's take, for example, who participated in the whole DEI, LGBTQ plus push as it relates to their marketing, their brand, right? But when the opportunity presented itself to not have to do that to basically attract business, they seized on it and people were upset. But I said, this is your problem, or our problem rather, with taking symbolism and taking pandering as an act of being genuine. And I'm saying that because I'm relating it back to the statues, right? And for everybody who is watching, think about yourself as the opposition, right? If you think that the United States of America is a racist nation and everything they do to Black people is strategic and everything under the sun, right? I'm going to concede to that argument, right? Now, why do you think it would be beneficial then to say take said statues that represent history outside of plain view? Because if I'm opposition, I'm good, because now the conversation never comes up. And if you bring the conversation up, I can easily say that I'm not racist because I took down a statue, because your own liberals, your own Democrats, your own leftists champion that as a win. And it wasn't a win, because for me, ideally, I'm not holding all white people to what took place back then. But what I do want to do is be able to have a conversation with, let's say, for example, me and my son going around DC. I want to be able to actually have a conversation with him about, Dad, who is that? Well, this is this person. It happened because of this. And I want to give you context around everything as it relates to that particular thing. If the statues are gone, if we keep going through these rebrandings, we have none of that. We can't talk about the cracker on the barrel because it's literally named Cracker Barrel. For real.
You made a good point too. I don't know if you kind of made something like a contrast, and it comes back to the immorality of corporations. You made a good point when you said Target one time. One time I went to Target and they had a lot of LGBTQ merchandise and things of that nature, and it was on full display. But then they against DEI. You know what I mean? So it's like, which side of the fence are you on? You know what I mean? I feel like with the whole DEI argument, I understand both sides. I understand, for me personally, as a businessman, I want the person who's qualified. I don't care about, your race, creed, sexual preference. I want the best. I want the best candidate so I can get the best results for my agenda and my corporation. I understand that, but I understand why DEI was necessary in certain aspects in a certain time frame. So I'm kind of torn with that because it's like, again, the sense of entitlement that some people, and I won't even blame it on either political party. I'll just say people. The sense of entitlement that some people have is not alignment to reality. Everything in reality you have to earn. You know what I'm saying? Or you can get it through nepotism and relationships and things of that nature. It's like having this expectation that you should get this or be entitled to this because X, Y, and Z. To me, I think is the wrong mindset to adopt and have, because it's just not reality. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like when I'm reading this book called The Jewish Phenomenon. In the book, it talk about Jews when it comes to politics and financial, especially when financial independence. They feel like the reason they're so independent and so self-reliant because they feel like once you depend on government, you're susceptible to being what's the word I'm looking for? You're being susceptible to being exploited. You know what I mean? And you basically set yourself up for failure further in the future by being solely dependent on government. Their whole thing about you as government is you use government for your benefit. You know what I mean? You're the one that control with your money, your dollars, your lobbying, and things of that nature. You don't depend on them to dictate your life. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that I see especially in our community and our demographic when it comes to that. We it's like we're looking for this hero on a white horse to come save us, to take us out of misery and do all these things. We're looking for politics to be more leaders too.
Yes.
And I'm like, yo, it doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? So even with Donald Trump, you can say whatever you want about him. One thing I can say in my lifetime, I'm 42 years old. He's one of the first politicians I ever seen in my time of being. I remember when Reagan was in office, Bush Sr., Bush Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, Trump. He's one of the first politicians I've ever seen move with a sense of urgency, even if you don't like it, even if you're opposed to it. In that sense,
Speaking, yes.
yes. So I feel like that's if I want to be honest, because we have an honest conversation, I can respect that. Even though I don't respect a lot of his ways, I don't respect a lot of things he do, but I can respect that the sense of urgency and he's doing what he said he was going to do versus the empty promises that other politicians have had over the years.
Yep. And so I'll touch on a few things that you said. As it relates to our community becoming over dependent on government and DEI. DEI in itself isn't the issue. It is to your point, the entitlement to it, but also the circumvention that has taken place as it relates to DEI. because it's the same circumvention that took place where you have affirmative action. And a lot of these policies have become null and void and become placeholders because when Lyndon Baines Johnson set in place affirmative action and when a lot of these policies were initially adopted, they were adopted for Negroes, descendants of slaves in America. But what has happened is that everybody has shoehorned their way into it based on the proximity of skin tone and flesh. What that then does is that it nullifies the actual policy itself. And as a result, it no longer has value. And you see people who, quote unquote, come off as entitled because they are not reaping the benefits of it. But it's this same conversation that we're having about the Cracker Barrel thing. A lot of people, especially, and I'll say in this specific spot, Black women and Black men who are in these affirmative action spaces do not understand that they have created their own monsters by allowing people to co-opt their identity. Because let's take here for DC, for example, right? To kind of help people put it in perspective. In DC, you have an office for each different ethnic group. You got the Office of Latino Affairs. You got the Office of African American Affairs. You got the Office of African Affairs. You got the Office of Asian Pacific Islanders, et cetera, right? All of them has monies and monies and programs allocated for each specific group. Everybody can come to the group or the Office of African American Affairs, but African Americans can't go to every other office because they have exploited our Blackness, which is why you see the delineation talk and conversations around people not wanting to actually be in communion with other groups because people see the policy exploitation. Now, when it comes to the Jewish community, I think, has a blind spot where they don't understand. So to pick back up, as it relates to the Jews, I think their biggest blind spot is that they don't understand how they had the ability to fold themselves into whiteness, right? And I think that's super important because don't think that they don't work hard, because I think the misconception is that people don't work hard. And I think for the most part, all groups in America work hard. But what has happened is unfortunately, America has created buffer systems. So if you look at a person like, let's say, Albert Einstein, right? Albert Einstein was a Jew who fled Nazi Germany. He began critiquing America as a result of getting to America and understanding what America was doing to the Negro. And as a result, did not take any accolades from any American institutions because he also critiqued his own people for fleeing the nation and folding into whiteness and exploiting that whiteness, the proximity in terms of like phenotype, to gain access to the economy in ways that the Negroes were not at that moment in point. But what I will agree with the Jewish community on is that you have to use government to your advantage. You have to use government in a way where you're exploiting it. But that takes political education. That takes people understanding policy. That takes people being able to have conversations that aren't rooted in one side and just picking, well, I'm a Democrat or I'm a conservative and just sticking to that. Because what other groups do is they exploit both sides.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just stick on one side because then you become a captured electorate. And that just means that it's basically like I can treat you kind of how I want to based on the simple fact that I know you're going to ride with me regardless.
And that's the biggest issue when it comes to us. It's two things: identity politics and virtual signaling. The virtual signaling in politics and the morality, trying to implement morality in it, to me, is like, it's a futile thing. It's like, it don't mix. You know what I mean? that's how I personally feel. Like you have to have a business approach. Even like for example, some people in the crowd will get mad. Let's say somebody like you who's in the community, who's activist and all types of things, right? And you represent the community. It was some people would even be mad at you if you sat down and even had a meeting with Donald Trump. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? They
which
will
is,
they
and
will
that's
exile
crazy.
you. They will exile you. They will crucify you. And I'm like, why you sitting down with him? They would look at you like they would label you like a sellout or something. And that's the point of politics: is meeting at the table. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And that's the thing of politics. But when it comes to identity politics, when it comes to personal feelings and how they personally feel, I feel like a lot of times that impedes on the logic of what politics is. You get what I mean?
Absolutely. Because I think it's disingenuous what people do when it comes to Trump, just based on what I've seen from both sides. Because a lot of people, what you won't see me do is take a photo op just for the sake of taking a photo op with any particular person. Because
Mm-hmm.
people do it on both sides. People do it in our city. People go to these conventions and they sit down with these Democrats and they don't get nothing in return but a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just as bad as the people who are being critiqued for showing up to Trump the same way. Now, I think you should sit down with Donald Trump and try to maybe negotiate or figure out some type of way to have resolve. But that requires you to be intelligent where it matters. Because I think where with the Jewish community, and I don't know if this point was represented in the text that you I think read or the conversation that you was having, but
Mm-hmm.
what also we don't do that a lot of people do is that we don't prioritize our thinkers. And what do I mean by that?
Oh, expound on that, because that sounds that's deep.
Because it's not so much, a lot of people will say, oh, but you're being elitist. It's like, no, it's not so much as about being elitist, right? In other communities, there's senators, there's scientists, there's politicians, they're actual, the thinkers, the intellectuals, the academics, those people are held up to where, for us, our entertainers are held up. So
Wow.
you will have a person, let's say Muriel Bowser, right?
Yeah.
And I have nothing against the Breakfast Club. I have nothing against them because what they do is great in the lane in which they do it. But our politicians run to a platform that is based in and built on and around pop culture, not around academic rigor. But they do that because, one, they understand that those people don't necessarily, and again, not because they're stupid, but because the same way that they are great in their lane, it takes so many man hours to become great and well read in a particular thing. So if I know that, I understand that when I go to certain platforms, you can't challenge me in the same way.
Right.
But what that does is it we have created this ecosystem where instead of platforming competence, we only platform popularity. But then we get mad when people devolve themselves into quote unquote popularity contests when it comes to our elections. But people have to then ask themselves, we have only conducted ourselves as a popularity contest because we don't respect intellectual rigor. Most people will say that, oh, you being too wordy. You need to break that down.
You acting right.
Yes. And it's like, look, certain concepts, certain themes, I cannot give to you in a 5-minute snapshot. I just can't because you will misunderstand the point because there are too many moving pieces and too many components within that.
Man, it's crazy. If you allow me to retort, man.
Go
I
ahead.
actually said this and I got crucified. What I basically literally said what you said, but in a different, it was in a different format and different tone. I say when it comes to culture, Asians usually lead with tech, education. Jews usually lead with finance. Middle Eastern usually lead with oil, business, diamonds, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
African, same thing, business, things of that nature. Now, every culture has a subculture or degenerates within their culture. Every
Yep.
culture has. But we're the only culture who leads with the degenerates. We're the only culture our culture is basically hip hop, thuggery as the leading focal point of our culture. And the thing about culture and black culture, black people are not a monolith. You know what I'm saying? Especially growing up here in DC. I tell people, I was born in 82. So I remember when DC was chocolate city. I went to DC schools. I went to Smothers Elementary. I went to Kelly Miller before I moved to PG County and into Landover. And I remember that I remember having a whole school of all black teachers, all superintendents. I had one white teacher named Miss Palmer. She was the only white teacher. I remember her because she used to give us candy if we got good grades. But I remember that my postmaster, the postman being black, my dentist being black, my doctor being black. So I see that component of DC being a black city that was independent, that it was working class people, it was people with money, it was people doing good. But what was being actually pushed was the urban aspect of DC, which was the hustler, which was the go-go. And I'm like, yo, I understand both things coexist, but it's like, why do we lead with that? And like you said, we don't push our thinkers forward. We push. It's almost looked as they're the ones who are corny and the ones who are doing the other shit, the unsavory stuff, are the ones who look as being leaders. And I think one of the biggest reasons is in our community, we confuse thuggery with masculinity.
Yes.
We confuse thuggery with masculinity, and it's not even. I'm not even just talking about. I'm even talking about from the aspect of women would say, I don't want to do this too soft. I want to do. I've seen this sometimes where men get more celebrated coming home from jail than somebody going to college.
And I'll say this because my life and my lived experience is very diverse and intersectional. Graduated from college, and I definitely got more love when I actually went to prison versus because again, being honest, I never thought people cared about me in that way. Like I've been trying to do and build and organize, and I've only gotten pushback as a result because I've always been considered the quote unquote radical. And for everybody who's watching who might say that this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the subject matter at hand, it does. Because what happens is when we get back around to that piece about, you mentioned being able to relate in, right? And that piece of being able to wear kente cloths.
Mm-hmm.
because it goes back to the superficiality of identity politics, because that's all it is. And so it's the same thing. And why you get Megan Thee Stallion at a Kamala Harris rally when the crowd is presumed to be black,
That was crazy.
because it expectation, or rather a assumption that is all you can consume, or all you have the capacity to consume.
Cringe-worthy thing, because it was almost like, especially at an election like was last year, it was such things as high at stake. And it's like, if this was 1995, that might have worked. But in this day and age, people are a little bit more
Aware.
aware, right? So it's like, yo, it's almost like you throwing a fish to a baby seal and the seal clapping and everything, and they just so happy to get a fish. And it's like, yo, that would have worked in a certain time frame, but it's like, yo, we don't everybody don't want that. You know what I'm saying? Everybody don't want that to be the representation all the time. And it feels so contrived. You know what I'm saying? If the feeling of it didn't even feel genuine. Like even when, let's say back in the day when Arsenio Hall, when Bill Clinton came on there and played the saxophone and everything. Now people could have said that was pandering, right? But at least it had a little genuine feel to it. It didn't feel forceful. You know what I mean?
Because it was the introduction of a playbook.
Exactly.
See, the problem is, and this is where people don't understand how they play this self. And I'm gonna wrap it up because we about to come to an end.
Okay.
But this is where people don't understand where they play themselves. Because see, that was the introduction of a playbook, right? The taking down the statues and doing all of these rebrandings is the introduction to a playbook. But what people have to be aware of is that when people pick up that playbook to use it against your interests, that's why I tell people you always have to be aware of both sides, because people know how to play the middle, which is why I made the critique about Jasmine Crockett. Do not try to be a Trump Democrat candidate. You're going to lose at that.
Yeah.
You can't play that game because there are already certain things built into the ecosystem that doesn't allow you to do that at the same capacity at which Trump can do it. Now, whether you you can disagree with why you can't, which some of those things I may side with you on, but the reality is, to your point earlier at the beginning of the conversation, is they don't deal in reality. The reality is it's there, and it's going to create an avenue as to where you cannot leverage that same ability and tactic in the same way. So now we're at a point where not only are companies rebranding themselves and doing everything that they're doing, but now the GOP on the opposite end of that same rope is saying, you know what? No, let's get rid of CRT. Let's get rid of the history. Let's get rid of the slavery stuff. Let's get rid of the Smithsonians. And people are like, oh my God, how can you do that? Well, because y'all was getting rid of the statues. It's the same ideology. Yeah. It's the same thing. Think you were doing it for different reasons, but it's the same outcome. Yeah.
It's just opposite. And you know what's so funny when you talk about the political playbook, especially when it comes to Jasmine Crockett. You know what I think will be a great approach to not trump it up, but a different playbook. And I'm asking your opinion. I feel like if she had if her demeanor and her playbook would be is to be real stoic and kind of like passive aggressive humor, not overt, not you know the you know the sassiness and all that
That's
stuff.
satirical humor.
Yeah, exactly. But be real stoic, be informative, lead with you know like little sarcasm, little jabs here and there, but still just be natural. I feel like that would be a good way because it's not you can we already reached this plateau of being politically extreme. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that is actually a lot of people are kind of burnt out by that. You know, even though Trump is successful in this realm, but you could tell even some of his base is burnt out by it. So I feel like you have to do you got to learn how to pivot to say, okay, read the room and say, you know what, it's an opportunity and a space for me to come with a different agenda and go. And I'm gonna go take this avenue. Because like you know in politics, this whole Trump thing is the MAGA is just an extension of the Tea Party. So when things become too liberal, you're going to get a strong conservative pushback. And then when things get too conservative, you're going to get a liberal pushback. And now things are ultra, I won't even say just conservative, shit just is extreme. So now the pushback, now they don't understand. They have a avenue or a part where they can actually come back from it, but it's just the way they go. It's their strategy, how they go about it.
You're 100% right, bro.
Right.
Because and the problem is that a lot of people in these spaces, in these parties, and it's a huge echo chamber. So any critique around Jasmine Crockett or anything of the sort of what you just said, they take it as hate, not being an ally, etc. I agree 100% because again, you're playing a game, you're playing a playbook that's been used up. You're also trying to engage in something that was not necessarily built for you. You're a Black woman. You can't play that game the same way. You also don't have the level of wealth and people back who have you to do that and drop your kahunas in the same way that he does, right? So I agree with you. And that's the position I took when I made my video on it, because it's like, you also have to factor in that doing that takes time and repetition. I need y'all to be able to focus on policy. My biggest thing to everybody right now is that the way that you push back on this moment is clarity, is truth, is discourse. Because you create room for people to lie and move in all of these dark spaces where you get to telling the half truths, or you want to sell this narrative, even though it's it's 70% true, but you're not telling them that one part. It's like the unemployment numbers. Like, yeah, unemployment is low, but you're not telling them no that they don't count people after they stop looking for a job in 4 to 6 weeks. Because if you count those people, that number astronomically rise. And so for me, what I think a person like Jasmine Crockett or anybody, I'm tired of the sassy snapbacks. I'm tired of the performative everything, because people, especially the companies and the money team, which I call them, the GOP, as a collective, the GOP including the money team, because it's an interwoven ecosystem, which is why a lot of people don't understand and can't beat them. But it's like, y'all, they know that y'all performative. They know that you all aren't going to stand on what you say. Because my thing is, even if you believe a different way, right? Just rock with it. Like for the whole NFL thing, right? People laugh at me because I still don't watch it. And I tell people, go ahead, do you. I don't hate you. I'm not here to antagonize anybody. But don't come to me complaining and talking about protesting when they shit on y'all again. Because they did it multiple times before. And so maybe they got to do it 6 more times for you to actually get it. It's like my sister, my mother, and the women in my family. If I tell you that a dude is garbage and you say, all right, cool, you want to go back with him? I'm not going to hassle you about that. But don't expect me to jump in it when you say, oh, yeah, now it's time to jump in and we going to protest.
So can I ask you a question? So I still watch the NFL, right? And I'm a go 49ers. I'm a huge fan. The reason why I didn't get into arms about that, because I don't rely on them for politics. And the thing I say that I understand what it is. Like I have a stoic approach when it comes to life, and kind of like more of a mental thing versus emotional response. And I wasn't always like that. Like I used to operate off of emotion, but a lot of things, different things in my life that happened, just trial and error through life. I don't know if you know, I was in a near fatal car crash. Yeah, it was last October where I was in ICU. I got actually pinned under a bus. I died. I actually, kind of died and came back. I had to get, air vac to, it happened in PG County, air vac to Baltimore, shock trauma. I woke up the same day and I had to get a surgery, real traumatic injuries with my arm. I have metal in my arm and things of that nature. So when you experience things that compound with other things in life, it's like your perspective on things change. And you understand, like, the sense of it. Like, for example, the NFL is a corporation. You know what I'm saying? It's a corporation first before anything. Entertainment is a subset of that corporation. But so when the whole Kaepernick thing, like I said, I'm a 49ers fan and I like Kaepernick. And he did what he did for whatever reason, whatever his motivation is. But when you have a system in place, it's like, I just don't understand why everybody was surprised. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, what was like, are y'all surprised by this? Like, these people aren't your friends.
So for me, I would say I wasn't necessarily surprised by it, but I do have limits and boundaries, right? So for me, my perspective on it is that I agree with you. It's entertainment. I don't take the NFL in a front-facing way serious. I love football. I played collegiate football. I played high school football. But as a person who is close up on politics, I understand how the stakeholdership works. So for me, it's not so much as about the teams and things like that. What I think about is the relationships that the owners have with people who may not necessarily have my better interests, right? So for example, right, we just pushed through a stadium deal here in the District of Columbia. Everybody love it. Ooh. But don't also talk to me about how bad you think Trump is, because those are one and the same team.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you can't separate it when it's convenient. And that's just my thing. Like, for me, it's like, look, and that's why I don't disparage anybody for doing it. I try to engage people on just being informant. Like, I just want you to understand that that's an ecosystem. And it's not that I will never watch the NFL again, because if they take certain stances and positions that, like I said, that are actually not just superficial, but have some substance, I'm cool with that. But so long as you have people like Jerry Jones and all of these different type of movers and shakers who donate to causes and fund causes that go against my interests and the interests of my community, and don't allow the men who are Black men the space for self-determination outside of getting huge checks, personally just say I'm good on it for right now, because
Right.
I think that it's going to come back to bite us. Because again, for me, it's just, this is a whole ecosystem, and I can only say to myself that, like, look, I can't do it. It's like going into a store. I'm not going to keep complaining about the store.
Right.
I'm just going to stop shopping there. And again, I'm not going to crucify anybody else who shop there, because maybe they don't treat y'all the same way. It's the same way some of the people feel about certain political people in the city. They have a different relationship with me. So again, even though I can objectively say that, yeah, that behavior right there is jacked up, and they also don't like that about me. Because I believe that I am the friend who will be like, I love you dearly, I'll fight for you. But at the same time, that's jacked up. And like, what I'm saying right now is, what you did wasn't smart.
Mm.
And a lot of people
just want to get pandered to. That's why.
And that's what it comes down to. And for me, it's just like, I have people who watch the NFL that I still talk to, and they understand my position, and I respect them. It's no love lost, so I'm not about to be like, oh, you a dummy, you a moron, because it's so many different moving pieces, bro, that if I really want to go into it, we would really have to let go of everything. Like, even with the Target boycott, it's like, okay, y'all gonna boycott Target, but Target is attached to so many other different brands and so many other different companies that if you don't boycott that, it makes the boycott useless. And then, let's say, even if the boycott works, y'all don't even understand that the private equity firms and the way that the financial institutions have been set up in America are gonna come in, liquidate it, set it, raise the stock market, and then socialize the losses, the way that they've been doing a lot of these different companies. So it's like, I don't really get into, and that's why you never really see me get into the disrespect of people. I know people try to do that to me, and it's like, look, I'm not really about to go there, because that's not who I am in, like, true reality. Like, I don't really be doing that in person, like going off on people. Like, it's certain people who I don't respect, who I will, but I'm still not about to just be, I'm not the person. Yeah, that's not.
It's an immature response, and I see that all the time with people who are like in a political round. It's it's a lady that I know on Facebook who's liberal, who does she does stuff for the community, and she does I guess she's into like to racial equality for a certain company, but she doesn't understand her demeanor and her disposition a lot of times. Honestly, it comes off as self-serving, meaning like, you want to be this martyr so bad, and it's almost like you kind of it's filling some type of void that you have in you, because
it's a business model.
It's making you feel superior. It's making you feel superior, and you're not doing it from a sense of, I'm not gonna say it's not genuine, but it's something, because just because a person has a opposing view,
and I'm gonna tell you why, because people have turned it into a business model. And that's why I don't necessarily always support people on the left and support every activist. Because again, I've seen it, again, up close on it. I never knew it until I'm like, oh, This is a business.
They branded.
Exactly. You're not doing it because you care. You're not doing it because you want to see it change. You doing it because you can get a contract off of it. You can get a grant off of it. You can monetize the situation. And so for me, this is why I tell people I'm not going to call people ignorant and out of their name for certain stuff, because y'all are no better than the Donald Trump that y'all talking about. And that's why I critique us, because it's like, I know things that we do on a day in, day out basis, bro, that are just as bad, if not worse, because it confuses our people. Because our people may not understand it. Like, they see that person as a hero, but they don't understand because they're not. And again, I don't want people who are watching to think that I'm saying that you are stupid, but there is a certain level. If you've ever been in any academic regimen, there are things called prerequisites. And there's certain stuff that I'm not an expert on. They would talk circles around me. But when it comes to politics, there are certain things that you got to understand before you can even start seeing the whole picture. And because a lot of people are not engaged in it to that extent, if I'm giving out bikes and doing all of the stuff that people love, they think I love them.
Right.
When not so much.
It's just a ploy.
I'm just exploiting the fact that you don't have resources, and I'm getting money to write off and provide you resources, and I'm going to use it and market it in a way to where I am the savior.
Right.
And I don't, and me personally, people say, why am I focusing on the Democratic Party and people like that versus Donald Trump? Because I think I can't even address, quote unquote, racism and all of the other stuff that y'all talking about until we actually deal with this.
In-house stuff.
Because we gotta go through black people first.
Yeah.
Y'all first line enemy.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
And again, a lot of people don't want to say that and have that conversation, but it's like, no, that's the reality of our community right now. Right. Because as much as y'all want to talk about white racists and throw out that term all loosely, a lot of y'all want to be that. A lot of y'all talk about the oligarchy. A lot of them crap. I agree.
And this is my biggest issue when it comes to the racism. And like I said, you know, me growing up here in DC, DMV, we cannot compare our plight to somebody who's living in the South or the Midwest.
Absolutely not.
Because we have not faced overt racism growing up in this area. Actually, growing up here, actually, because my father was in the military, he lived in Norfolk, Virginia. And then when I started traveling, I didn't realize how much really we're in a bubble here. We're in a cultural bubble where when you go outside of it, you like, the shit that we kind of seeing is not normal. The black, so we're kind of almost like, I don't want to say we're racist. We're not racist, but we're on the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to race and how we see things and perceive people. And a lot of times people here have not traveled outside of here, so their experiences and stuff are so biased and one-sided. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And not knowing that you actually kind of, in a way, we don't realize how spoiled we are to a certain degree. We don't realize it. You know what I'm saying? And it becomes this oppression Olympics. Like, yo, y'all want to be oppressed. It's like it's almost this romanticized thing of almost like oppression porn. Like, it's like, yo, you out here, you complaining, and I'm like, but your experience is not the same experience as a black person living in Arkansas. It's not the same experience of a black person living in
Alabama.
Yeah, I'm like, it's like you want to be down so bad, and I guess because I don't know if it's like bonding or social bonding type thing. It's just like, yo, but that's not your reality. Living here, we did not experience that plight. And I'm not saying racism don't exist. Even when it comes to the DC police, the police in DC is very liberal compared to just the police in PG County.
I would agree.
And we're right next to each other. So I'm like, yo, it's like, and don't even talk about Virginia police. You know what I'm saying? Which is a
Stark
different
contrast.
Yeah, and I'm just like, yo, why do we want to be this like this? I don't. It's like, why do we want to be this oppressed? I don't. It's like I don't get it.
It's because in a lot of ways, bro, people aren't telling the truth about what goes on behind the scenes.
Right.
Because it is a lot more overt. I would say it is a lot more overt racism that happens behind the scenes. But a lot of people don't like to talk about it because it diminishes their actual power. And so what they do is they project a lot of it out without wanting to tell you that I don't have much power. So they try to hold on to the facade of it at the same time where
you talking about our particular political leaders.
Yeah, in DC.
Okay.
Bubble.
Yeah.
Because it is a bubble. It's a super bubble. And it's an echo chamber that is so dangerous because, again, to your point, it's like, look, we aren't experiencing it in the same way, but because you all are navigating it, we aren't even leveraging the potential of the proximity that we have to it. Because again, like I'm going back, actually push forward our thinkers in a space because we have the ability to walk and talk and drop our kahunas the way we want to in the city in the way that other people don't really and can't really do. We would push everybody that much further ahead. But because the people at the top are trying to placate into this level of whiteness while at the same time playing into the identity politics, at the same time trying to gesticulate that they have a certain level of power that they don't, which is cool because, again, they have power. They have power. I'm not saying that they don't. But the level in which they try to portray, they do not. It's done. And that's why Trump has been able to come in and just drop it on them the way that he has because, one, y'all not organized. Two, all of y'all going against each other. And three, you don't really got it like that. You never really did. And you have not because you have not organized and built in a way that made you stronger. Because again, for me, what I wanted to do, we could have had attorneys out the guwab who are not able to participate in their industry in the traditional way right now, working on policy, working on pushback. We could have had all of these activist organizations centralized, like Megatron, like a Decepticon. We could have had Divine Nine. I've been trying to get in front of them because I'm like, why is there not a policy in place where y'all can have something called like the Divine One? Where in these type of moments, y'all mobilize and come under one umbrella, all colors together like some Captain Planet type shit and move.
Nah, I get it.
If you see all them colors in the street, along with all the organizations in the street, and then you got the I don't even want my attorneys. Y'all keep working. I don't need y'all in the street. We got the street people, we got the people on the paper, but we not thinking like that. And that's the only reason I do this, because I want to get to the point where I can build and put people in position to be like, yo, these my speakers, these my entertainers who going to galvanize and get everybody, these my intellectuals over here that I just want in the room. I want y'all in the...
It's a pecking order.
Yeah, it's a pecking order. It's a horizontal pecking order, and then it's a vertical. Because in each cabinet is going to be a vertical one. So in my entertainment group, that's going to be a vertical set. In my academic set, that's going to be a vertical group. But then horizontally, it's also going to be action across. So everybody is learning from each other in the disciplinary.
And I feel like the entertainers should be the foot soldiers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they should be the foot soldiers, the ones who attract the people. And then, like you said, the scholars are the ones who are basically the quarterback, the point guard.
Y'all the hitters. Y'all the hitters. Yeah. Because again, we keep losing because we putting out, and people hear me saying, they're like, oh, you a hater, da, 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 da. It's like, no, I'm not hating on entertainers, man. It's not that I don't think that they have any use. It's just that we're using them in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like we keep losing because y'all trying to put them up against intellectual juggernauts.
We using them as our end all be all.
Yeah, and they not that. And that's not any disrespect to them. And they should get to a point where it's like, look, I respect the ones like Charles Barkley and them who be like, look, I'm not no political person. I'm not no lawyer, none of that. I'm a basketball player. Ask me about basketball. Because again, People be like, oh, well, no, that's honest. He understand that he put in thousands and thousands and thousands of hours to be that level of basketball player. And putting in those thousands and thousands and thousands of hours means that he couldn't put those hours somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Kanye West is great at music and all of that other shit because that's what he put his time toward.
Mm-hmm.
But that means he couldn't put his time toward. No, I don't want you in the room with Donald Trump, Kanye West. And I love Kanye West. But I don't want you in the room with him because you don't understand, because he's not stupid the way y'all think he is. People think that these GOP guys are dumb, and they are not dumb.
No.
You need to stop saying that. They're highly intelligent. They just don't work in our interests in all times, in all cases. Because I'm not even going to sit here and say that I don't agree. A lot of the stuff that Trump and them proposed, I agree with in terms of principle. Now, the way that they may go about getting to the outcome, I differ in some ways. But I also am not going to sit here and act like that the lane wasn't created for it to happen and take place. Like, for example, here in DC, people crying about that. It's like, but look, the shit wasn't cleaned up. We're not going to sit here and act like
it's the leader's fault.
Y'all opened the door. Fault. If you didn't want that to happen, you should have took care of it. It's like you come home, your mama tell you take out the trash, take out the trash, take out the trash. You mad that you got your ass whooped, but you could have prevented that.
Even if it's extreme, even if his response is extreme, you still gave him that little crack, the door. You had the door crack open to where, because you know what happened, right? It stopped. Just the things that were happening just stopped happening to us. It starts seeping over into them because it's so gentrified. And once it seeped over to them, you can't do nothing because they'll sit back and watch us do whatever we do to each other all day. But once it seeped over to them, and people and this is where I get confused because I hear people say they're only doing it because it happened to this particular race, and I'm like,
duh. Like, and you know what it is? It's because people can't hold the truth at the same time and be able to assess the situation of, yes, it is true, but what does that tell you? And hold it as the truth. Because again, everything about this moment is about the truth. He is masked off everything. It's about the truth. Get out of your feelings, get out of your emotions. This is the America that we've always lived in. Stop saying this is not our America. Yes, it is. He did not invent none of it. He did not recreate any of it. He took advantage of everything that was there.
And the thing is, it shows you who they hold on a high pedestal. And that's the main reason why we should love each other even more.
Yep.
That's the way and it goes to show that we need to govern ourselves and love ourselves more because they're showing you who they value and who they don't. So that shows you that we need to value ourselves more than what we are. And I think we need to look inward because Trump is just the result of something. He's not the cause. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yo, and when I talk to people about it, it's like this one young lady, she's a beautiful woman too, man. And I believe her heart is in the right place, right? But
bring your face down some.
Okay, my bad. It's like her obsession with Trump is really, it almost reminds me of a person who's obsessed with their ex that left them. They've been broken up for a year and they keep going back. Yeah, but you know what? It reminds me of this ex and this and that. And I'm like, yo, you gotta let it go, man. Like you gotta let it go. You gotta let it, like, let that hurt go. You keep making him the focal point. You ignore that a little 3-year-old girl got killed. And then you bring it back to Trump. And it's like you so pacifying. Because this is the main one that makes me angry when I hear people say this. These kids don't got nothing to do. Now, I'm born in 1982. In 2000, I was 18, right? Now, during that time, this is pre-social media, where we didn't have phones in our hand. You had dial-up internet. We had to figure out how to get on the train to go certain places. During that time, we had less stimulation and more idle time than we have now.
Yeah.
These kids have streaming. These kids have their phone. These kids have the internet. These kids have all type of stimulants. So when I hear people say these kids are bored, don't have nothing to do, I have to push back on that because simply for two things. DC is a liberal city. Most of the liberal cities have a bunch of programs and a bunch of nonprofits. I went to Sasha Bruce Youth Build. I was a resident in Sasha Bruce as a youth. I lived in Sasha Bruce for a certain amount of time. I went to Sasha Bruce Youth Build and I went to Arts Youth Build. I got my GED. I got things of that nature. Then I became an outreach worker for Arts. So I've seen both sides of the spectrum. So when people say it's nothing for these kids to do, no, it's just not cool and a sexy thing to do and look for these resources. You have the information in your hand, which is the cell phone. Back then, I had to actually go to Maryland Avenue, go to Sasha Bruce, sign myself up. I had to take some initiative. Now you can just go on your phone to do it.
Yep.
You don't even have to do that. You can call, go on the website, fill, and it's another journal, East Capitol Street, called Maya Angelou Academy. You can go to school for GED. You can go to school to learn how to do nails. You can go, and it's free. So when people say these things of like, oh, these kids are so bored, and that's why boredom does not mean you go jack a car. Boredom does not mean you go shoot somebody. So when they conflate these things, to me, it's excuses. You pacifying it, and you making the situation worse because you're not being honest. You know what I'm saying? And another politician who was a political leader said, well, what's happened? He warned that this was going to happen. He said, listen, this is going to happen because they keep giving these youth slaps on the wrist. They keep letting them come out. They jack a car, they come on 6 months later, 8 months. Sometimes they need to sit and be isolated to learn from what they're doing. Because if you keep letting them out, it's almost like like they said, if you keep cheating on a spouse and she keep threatening to put you out, but she never put you out, you're going to just be like, well, she's sweet. And I think that's what's happened. Now the hammer is down. Everybody's just like, oh my God. And it's like, bro, come on. This was a build up, and it was so many, it was just so many incidents where this was a build up, and we knew this was going to come because he told us this will be what happened. And what happened is y'all put your hands on the wrong one, and it's almost like now it's like, it's fair game now.
Yeah, it's super fair game.
Yep, it's fair game, bro.
I want to thank you for coming and having this conversation, bro. You know, we could go on all day. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna get your number so we can build.
And man, when I because you know I do pod, and I'm actually launching mine next season.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's called Darius the Great Presents the Dichotomy, and I would love for you to be a guest on it because I feel like you represent the dichotomy of two things of in the political realm and what you experience in your personal life. You know what I'm saying? With the situation, with your incarceration. And I feel like that would be a perfect thing to talk about, and just in contrast of what you've been doing and what you've been doing versus now that you're seeing a different type of, I don't want to say love, but admiration because you've been through something. And to me, that's a good and bad thing. It's a bad thing because it's like, yo, why do a person have to experience a certain thing to resonate with a certain demographic that y'all champion him as a hero? But he's been doing this. But it's like now he kind of earned his stripes, or he get certain accolades because of that certain experience. To me, that's mind-boggling.
It is. It is. It's painful. It's painful.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling. It's like a gift and a curse.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like a gift and a curse.
Everybody, thank y'all. Check my man out. Your social media handles, you want to share any of those?
Oh, so on Instagram is Darius the Great, is DVRIUS THGREAT the Great. On Facebook is Office Q Darius, OLFUSQ, and DARIUS.
All right. So y'all go check my guy out. I appreciate y'all for watching. Hit the like button, hit the share button. Again, we trying to make sure these conversations are had and elevate, like I said, the thinking people, the people who want to see some progress. And again, we don't always got to agree, as y'all see, to remain and be respectful. But I'm going to go ahead. You get your workout in, bro.
Yes,
I'm going to go ahead, make some additional calls, man. But y'all be safe. I appreciate you. I love you and thank you. And y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Sunday.
All right, bro. Salute.
Yep.